Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has set the record straight. On October 17th, he firmly dismissed suggestions that Ukraine was seeking nuclear weapons, clarifying remarks that had sparked confusion just days earlier.
Sometimes we create ourselves problems. Now you began to do it. So we never spoke about that we are preparing to create nuclear weapon or something like this. I said that when Budapest Memorandum was signed by very honorable very powerful nuclear countries, there was written that Ukraine gives nuclear weapon and Ukraine will have from these very respectable countries, including those time Russia, China, United States, including them.
This critical clarification comes amid an intensifying war with Russia, as Russian President Vladimir Putin ramps up his nuclear rhetoric, casting a long shadow over Ukraine's security. At a press conference alongside NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, Zelensky addressed his earlier comments, which some interpreted as hinting at Ukraine's nuclear ambitions. Zelensky's frustration stems from a recent conversation with Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump in September, where he mentioned the possibility of Ukraine pursuing nuclear weapons if NATO membership was out of reach. However, Zelensky quickly walked back those remarks, explaining that they reflected his deep disappointment in the Budapest Memorandum, not a genuine desire to go nuclear. The 1994 Budapest Memorandum saw Ukraine relinquish the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal in exchange for security guarantees from the US, UK, and Russia. Guarantees that Zelensky argues have failed Ukraine in its hour of need. Zelensky has repeatedly pointed to the 2014 annexation of Crimea and Russia's 2022 invasion as evidence that those promises of protection were hollow. Visibly frustrated, Zelensky made it clear: nuclear weapons are not part of Ukraine's defense strategy, urging the global community to stop pushing this false narrative. His clarification comes at a dangerous time. Europe's nuclear tensions are already high, and Putin has been quick to seize on Zelensky's remarks, warning that any move by Ukraine toward nuclear capabilities would trigger an appropriate reaction.
This is a dangerous provocation. It's not difficult to develop nuclear weapons today, and while Ukraine may struggle, it's still possible. Any such move would meet with a decisive response.
Putin went further, expressing Russia's willingness to negotiate, but strictly on Moscow's terms. He pointed to a draft document from March 2022 talks in Istanbul, suggesting it should serve as the basis for any future peace deal.
We are open to dialogue for peace, but only based on the draft that was thoroughly negotiated and initialed by Ukraine. This is the only framework for progress.
Putin also backed peace proposals from China and Brazil, but made it clear: Russia's 2022 annexations of 4 Ukrainian regions are non-negotiable. Reacting to Zelensky's earlier nuclear remarks, Putin doubled down, warning that any step in that direction would be met with an appropriate reaction. The mounting nuclear rhetoric from both sides is stoking fear across Europe, where anxiety is growing that the conflict could escalate into a broader regional crisis. The debate over Ukraine's security, whether through NATO membership or some other form of deterrence, remains central to the war. Zelensky's earlier comments hinted that, without NATO, Ukraine might have no choice but to consider nuclear options, echoing Cold War-era dilemmas faced by Eastern European nations. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, a frequent critic of NATO's involvement, voiced skepticism about Ukraine's nuclear intentions, but admitted that even the suggestion warrants close scrutiny.
It didn't seem to me during negotiations that Ukraine seriously intended to become a nuclear power. It's hard to imagine, but even the idea is enough to raise alarms.
The mere hint of nuclear proliferation has sent ripples of fear through Europe, where leaders are worried about the war spiraling out of control.
The fact that even a vague, unconfirmed, or non-existent Ukrainian nuclear plan can create such panic speaks to the gravity of the situation.
Zelensky's clarification was aimed at quelling those fears, stressing that NATO membership remains Ukraine's only viable path to long-term security. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, standing beside Zelensky, reaffirmed the alliance's steadfast support, but declined to offer a timeline for Ukraine's accession.
2 weeks ago, I made my first official trip as Secretary General. The destination was Kyiv. There, I reaffirmed that NATO stands shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine now and into the future. We are working, and with urgency, to deliver a new NATO command to coordinate security assistance and training for Ukraine.
Rutte emphasized that NATO is prepared to confront any threat and remains committed to helping Ukraine while modernizing the alliance's nuclear and conventional capabilities.
It is my firm belief that one day Ukraine will be a member of NATO, and I will applaud when that day comes. It's also very clear that Putin or Russia have no say in this, no vote, no veto. They cannot influence that discussion. And then obviously it is up to the allies to discuss amongst themselves how to take this forward.
While NATO's direct military intervention remains off the table, its extensive military aid to Ukraine continues to grow, even as the debate over Ukraine's full membership rages on. Zelensky, visibly impatient, pressed for faster action, warning that NATO's protection is essential for Ukraine's survival, but acknowledged that the road remains long and fraught with political obstacles. For now, Zelensky has ruled out Ukraine's pursuit of nuclear weapons, but with Putin's threats looming, the stakes in this war and Ukraine's security remain at the center of global concerns.